Now let's go to our next entrepreneurship panel and watch experts discuss growing your veteran-owned business. Charlinda Scales is an Air Force veteran, owns and operates Mutt Sauce, and competed on Shark Tank. Rosie Lee is from Action Zone, a nonprofit serving other veterans in the Tampa Bay area. Diane Denslow is on the faculty at University of North Florida. And Julianne Nichols, CEO of Julo Strategy, whose mission is to help businesses grow and thrive. Rosie, Diane, and Julianne's respective organizations are network partners in the Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program.
I'm Amy Entris. I am the Entrepreneurship Manager for Veterans Florida and also a Navy veteran. And I welcome you today to the Entrepreneurship Growth Panel. And we want to thank Bank of America, who's our sponsor for Virtual Expo. Without them, it would be difficult to do this expo, so we appreciate their support. So I'd like to introduce you now to our panel of experts. And we'll start with Ms. Lee.
Hi, I'm Rosie Lee. I'm the Executive Director and Co-founder of Action Zone. We're located in Tampa, Florida, and we are an entrepreneur support organization serving the military community.
Thank you. Ms. Scales.
Hi, I'm Charlinda Scales. I'm the servant leader of Mutt Sauce. We make an all-purpose specialty sauce out of Dayton, Ohio. You make it, put it on anything. My grandfather was the military veteran who came up with the recipe. I put it in a bottle to share it with you and your family.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Denslow?
Yes, I'm Diane Denslow from the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm a member of the faculty there, and I created and teach in the entrepreneurship program that we have there.
Fantastic, thank you. Ms. Nichols?
Hi, I'm Julianne Nichols. I'm the CEO of Julo Strategy. We bring out the CEO in you. We're happy to be here to celebrate our partnership with Veterans Florida, where we work with veterans to shift their mindset from employee mindset to CEO mindset.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, it's great to have you all here. So we'll just go ahead and jump in to the first question. We'll get started with you, Ms. Lee. How do you know your business is ready to grow?
I think there are a number of different indicators that may lead you to believe that you're ready to grow. One of the first would be if you have a stable customer base and as well as a consistent profit. I don't say consistent revenue because a lot of companies are very busy and have a lot of revenue, but their profit margins are insufficient for them to sustain growth. They can't support growth. If that's the case, then you need to really look at your processes and operations. Look at your supplier channels, your marketing activities and expenses, labor costs, and obviously your pricing model. I think the next indicator is if your customers are asking for growth, but only if you're experiencing good revenue and sufficient profit should you even consider that. One of the most detrimental temptations for a business, especially one that's starting to experience some success, is to grow business through lines of service or products before you're really ready to do that. You have to model the new product line or new service line the same way you did your business. So just seeing that your customers are asking you to add more products or services, and in the case of what we've experienced in the last few months with the pandemic, many businesses are experiencing that. Their customers are asking for things that they're really not prepared to supply. You have to resist that temptation and go back to basics, model out that line of service or product to see if you're ready to commit to that. And I think lastly, does what you're doing follow your plan for growth? When you built your business, you also likely built out a plan for growth. What milestones did you need to achieve to know that you were ready to add products and services? Did you meet those milestones? Are there other circumstances like the pandemic that have put you in a position to change the way you're conducting business or the services or products that you're offering? That will certainly have an influence. And can you afford to grow at this time? Those are all considerations that you need to take in before you actually pull the trigger on activating any growth in your business.
Great. Great information. Thank you. Ms. Denslow, if you'd like to continue with that question.
Yeah, I would. I certainly, Rosie has hit on some key things. And I like the fact that she mentioned that you should have a plan for growth because it really should be a strategic decision. And I would like to add, I think that you need to have some processes in place to grow. procedures, how things are done, that everybody's familiar with that, especially if you're going to grow to another area. I think that's very important. I would also say that you need to have a solid team of employees who are committed. They're the right people for the jobs. They're qualified, that can do the work. And also would say that you need sufficient amount of cash to grow, because growth takes cash in terms of capital that you need. You may need more employees. You may need a larger space, more inventory. So you definitely have to have adequate cash. And then I would say capacity too. Do you have the capacity to grow? So those are some things, along with the things that Rosie mentioned as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you. To continue with that thought process, I'll ask another question, and then Ms. Nichols and Ms. Scales give you an opportunity to answer these. What are the key areas of your business to focus on in the growth stage? We'll start with you, Ms. Nichols.
I'm going to, echo the former question, and it's processes and systems all the way. I mean, if you don't have clear processes and systems, you have lack of communication, you have lack of good teamwork. There's so many things involved, and that is like the core of your business that revolves in any type of growth at all, in our opinion. How to automate, delegate, eliminate, and then also just knowing where you need help is a skill in itself. And every entrepreneur needs to grasp various parts of their business. So we each have to have specific skills and areas where we aren't good at or that we don't like. So part of improving as an entrepreneur is understanding which pieces of the business to take on and which ones to turn to others for. So we waste a lot of countless hours learning a part of the business you don't want to learn. And this is where I talk about a lot, is understanding the value of what you're worth. And when you understand that, you understand whether or not you should do that or you should delegate that. And so part of the key areas I think of to focus on in that growth stage is just making sure that what we call, can you bake me cupcakes, and having clear, detailed processes and systems in order to move to that next stage.
That's really fascinating. I like your use of cupcakes, which is a good segue into Ms. Scales's answer.
That's where I'm headed.
Yeah.
So I always like to start with why, right? Simon Sinek, start with why. When I was trying to grow Mutt Sauce, you constantly have to ask yourself, why are you growing it? You know, is it something that has to scale up to a certain level? I used to think I need to be in every Kroger store in the nation, and that is success. Well, it's going to get redefined over time, because you need to align your passion with what you're executing. If you don't have the heart to be running a big company, if that's not what you ultimately desire to do, it doesn't matter what you put in place. It's not going to succeed, because your passion actually will put the writing on the wall about how successful it will be. And then I will also say that I agree with them about processes. It was Abraham Lincoln. He said if you had 6 hours to chop down a tree, right, he'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening his axe. So I love that quote, because it's so true when it comes to building the right foundation for your business. If you want this thing to survive the long term, you need to spend more time sharpening your axe than you are just chopping, going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction probably. Mm-hmm. So those are the two things that I would leave, is explore your why, make sure your head is on straight and aligned with your heart and your intentions, and sharpen the axe.
Yeah.
Can I say something, Amy?
Please,
those are two very good points that Charlene and Julianne both said, and that is understanding what your goal was for the company. Not every person that starts a business is building it for this multi-million-dollar exit. Many business owners are building a business and because they want a legacy for their family, or they want to generate enough income for them to support their family, but they don't have aspirations for a unicorn, a multi-million-dollar business. And that's okay. that we need all types and sizes of businesses. Some people feel so much pressure when they're starting their business about how they're going to end their business. They should know what that end goal is. And as Charlinda said, understand that why and what you wanted out of this, and then stay there. You might be compelled in the future by events that happen that to make it different than what you intended. But as long as your heart and your mind and your processes are there to support that, that's okay. But I want to make sure that people understand, and I say this a lot to the veterans that we serve, you don't have to build that unicorn. You can build what you want to build and are comfortable managing. It doesn't have to be any bigger or smaller than that.
It's also why we talk about the end in mind first. So if you understand where you want to end up, that's the goal you're reaching. It's just how are you going to get there? So we always have a personal end in mind that we want to get to. And then we have the business's end in mind, because if we can get the business to where we want it to be, then we can get to where we want to be.
Right.
So everybody's different on what their box looks like, their end in mind box looks like. And that's something we really hone in on the CEO mindset, is that's what we all strive for. And so what are the obstacles that are keeping us from getting there to that end in mind helps us grow and get there quicker.
Yeah. And I would say a compliment to a lot of our military owned and mil-spouse owned businesses is we've had to be in this atmosphere where we've had to adapt, and you're going to have to do that as an entrepreneur, and your goals are going to have to adapt. I mean, you've heard of the COVID pivot. We're all pivoting right now too, because the way that we shop and the way that we sell is forever changed. And it behooves us to adapt our business models to fit that, the personal and professional goals.
I was just going to add, I think, regardless of whether you're going to grow to a very large business or you just want it more of a lifestyle business, I think cash management is critical and an area that you really have to focus on as you grow your business, because sometimes you can get a sale and then you need additional cash to buy more inventory to make that product. And then it just monitoring that cash so that you can continue to grow, shortening your accounts receivable cycle so that you're turning that cash a lot more quickly, because you need to get the cash back in the business to, buy product, to pay employees. So managing cash is just a critical aspect in growth, especially the faster you grow. You're going to find that. I remember I worked with one entrepreneur, had a courier business, and so he was continually shortening his receivable cycle and monitoring this on a daily basis, sort of his own KPI there. But cash management is critical, because he knew if he wanted to grow at the level that he was planning, he had to really monitor that cash. And I think that's where a lot of businesses get in trouble as well.
I would add on to that. We have to be careful that some of these businesses don't grow too fast, because you can have like explosive demand, like the Shark Tank, right? So they're mom and pop businesses that go on national TV, and overnight they have like 1 million orders. And then I've been there, so I've been on Shark Tank, and I've seen the aftermath where some of them are like, the Shark Tank effect put us out of business because we were not ready for that.
Yeah, Charlinda, you're right. Pacing your business is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also called being prepared for success, of which we don't often teach our entrepreneurs how to be prepared for success. We teach them how to get there, but then they're not always ready once it hits them. Like market, build it, they will come. Oh yeah, they're going to come. Are you ready?
Yeah, those are excellent points. And that actually is a really good lead into our next discussion point, which is how much of a role does staff play in your growth?
Oh, it's everything.
It is. And
Okay.
Diane mentioned this, where you have the right people in the right job. That can't be overstated. No company grows successfully without a solid supporting team. I love this interview I saw with Brian Scudamore, who is the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Excellent entrepreneur, very smart businessman. He fired his entire staff 3 years after he founded the company, because he determined that no one on his team was successfully fulfilling their roles or the vision that Brian had for the company. And so he terminated them all. And he always said, he said in that interview, that that was the turning point for his company. That when he was able to infuse the team with the right people, with the right experience and the right mindset, then he could grow the company. So whatever you're looking to do to grow your organization, you have to ask yourself, do you have the right people in the right job? Are they committed to supporting the growth of the organization? But maybe more importantly, have you as the business owner created a culture that the organization has that earns that commitment from the staff? If you go back to Brian's story, he placed the blame for his poor team on himself. He said he lost his vision. He tolerated behaviors and activities that he said that he shouldn't have. He was slacking from his original vision. So when he had to do that, he realized it was his own fault. He still did it, but it was his own fault. And then he was able to go back and look at people that were right for the job, that did share his vision, and he created that culture he originally wanted in his organization, but that somehow in the, as you said, Diane, the fast success kind of lost that, or Charlinda said that, he lost that. So ensure that you have the culture of the organization that you want it to be, and then hire people that fit that culture, and then they will help support your growth.
I think too that, you know, managing your team, and we're going to go back to that P word again, processes and metrics, having that team understand what it takes to get to your end in mind for your business, and having them be a part of that process of getting there is really important. They need to be laser focused just like you are. And if they understand what you're trying to get to, and it's not just a, what are we doing today? It's a, where do we want to get to? And what is my role as an employee in that? And then also, what is my role as the CEO to help them get there, to help them make it happen? Because it takes all of us. Name me one company anywhere that was built to whatever it needed to be, millions of dollars, with one person doing everything.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a key point in terms of hiring for cultural fit. You know, the values and beliefs that you create, those values and beliefs that characterize a company are essentially the culture. And you want people to have that emotional attachment, because research shows that, you know, highly engaged employees equate to high performance, and highly engaged employees have to have some type of emotional connection to the business, the values, the beliefs that you have. Maybe it's about sustainability and, you know, protecting the environment. And so then employees are, you know, they've bought into that. And so they're going to be more committed to the business and help you grow that business. So I think that is a key aspect that a lot of business owners don't even think about. They're looking more for technical skills and not to you know, minimize the importance of them. But I also think, you know, getting people to really commit, you want that highly engaged workforce. It's interesting because stats show only about 25% of, this is really more corporate analysis, but 25% of the workforce is highly engaged. 50% are moderately, and about it's changed a little bit, but roughly, you know, the bottom quarter are not. And so I always tell students and other people that I work with, you know, look, 75% of the people that you're working with are not really highly engaged, and you've got to, you know, you've got to motivate them. And so how do you do that? And so, you know, when you get employees that really believe like you believe what's important, the values that you have, and what the company is all about. Like I just saw an ad the other day, I forget those socks where now they're, you know, you buy a pair, they give a pair to somebody else, you know, just like the same concept with Tom's shoes. But, you know, that's the most requested item for shelters and such. But it's the idea, you hear that and people go, I want to be a part of that. You know, it's a social cause. I believe in that. They're doing good for the community, for, you know, for others. And so, you know, there's that buy-in. So I imagine their workforce is, you know, very committed to that as well. So I think that is a factor that's often overlooked. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Jillian.
Yeah, I would imagine that Ms. Scales brings on her staff by just offering samples.
Yeah, there you go.
Add nut sauce. That would be a good incentive.
Well,
an ice cream store or something like that, I'm sure.
I I definitely subscribe to birds of a feather, right? In terms of value set. And I was speaking to a group last fall, and I said I stopped looking for like-minded people because I can't succeed that way. It doesn't work. I don't want you to think like me. I don't want it to be your think, but I do need for our hearts to be aligned. So I start looking for like-hearted people versus like-minded people. And that's really helped. I mean, I had to do the same thing. Once I started evaluating the heart versus the head, my staff started turning over really quick. And a lot of them, I think, were attracted to the, hey, this is going to be, I think this will be successful. Not like, what is she trying to do with this company? I'm trying to bring American families together. I'm trying to start conversations that I think are revolutionary for our country in a good way. And a lot of those conversations happen at the dinner table. So that's what I'm focused on. And I need for your heart to be aligned in the same place. We can debate all day. You can think differently on how we execute that. I welcome different ideas on how to execute it. But that definitely changed the makeup of my team and for the better, because I feel like it's a lot more diverse environment of thought. I think they've thought of things I haven't thought of. Some of them come from backgrounds I'm like, I never would have gone in that direction if I hadn't had that person who's like, I'm a pessimist. Oh, okay. Well, great. But they're thinking worst case scenario at all times. And somebody on the team needs to think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the tendency is for most people to hire people like themselves. We tend to associate with people like ourselves. And you're absolutely right. We need to have diversity there in the thought process, people that think differently, look at things differently, because if they're all like-minded, then we may just go down the wrong path together.
I was like,
so
I need to have those people who are bold enough to tell me,
yes,
that's not going to work. I don't like that. That's a bad idea, ma'am. And I was like, hey, I'm a veteran. I've heard worse. I mean, I've had my heart crushed so many times in the military. I don't even think I have feelings. Like, it's okay. That's what they try to teach you, is that, there's a right and a wrong way to do things, and we're all on the same mission. We're all trying to achieve the same mission, and you just got to stay focused on that. And as long as you all have your heart in the right place, and it'll all work out. I like the debates, though. I like the lively discussions sometimes. It's great.
We have had, and I'm sure anybody that's ever been in entrepreneurial education has experienced this. Some people that come to us with the intent of starting a business because they are very entrepreneurial. They are mitigating risk takers. They challenge the status quo. They disrupt the things that are happening now. But when push comes to shove, they don't have that single piece that gives them the freedom to step out on their own. But as business owners, you want those people in your company because they do share that mindset. They may not align with your thought process, which, as Charlinda was saying, is a good thing, because you need somebody to play devil's advocate sometimes, or to pull you down from the clouds when you think that a worm farm is the next thing you're going to make $1 million at. But those, you look at everybody that's an employee of the month. Most people that are employees of the month at major companies are very entrepreneurial. They get the job done. They work very collaboratively. They think outside the box. You want those people in your organization, even if the technical skills, as Diane was saying, even if the technical skills don't really match. You can teach somebody technical skills. You cannot teach them a mindset as easily. I think you can try, but I don't think you can do it as easily.
Mm-hmm. And that's another, leads to another discussion, which is how do you creatively bring additional staff on board that match your mindset, or match your heart set? Oh, how do you do that? How do you recruit people like that, or employees like that?
I think they hear about your company and they're attracted to that. For example, I was reading about Belgium Brewery, and there's so much about giving back to the community and sustainability that they really attract people to the company. They want to be a part of that, and they want to be a part of that culture. So I think, word gets around that people, want to be a part of an organization that supports those types of causes. So I think that's an attractive manner to get other employees.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about forming the right team and everybody having their role in the organization. Well, as management, what kinds of things should you be tracking in order to ensure success and sustainable growth? I know, Diane, Ms. Denslow, you mentioned earlier about KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. I mean, I really think it depends on your company, what you're tracking. Certainly there's, you can track in the area of profit, you can track in the area of processes, you can track in the area of customers. So you really have to look, what do I need to measure, and what will I use to measure it? And without saying, I mean, most will look at, how am I doing? What profit am I generating on the, the sales that I'm creating? But also in terms of, I had one of our veteran entrepreneurs, and he was looking at customer acquisition costs. So he has a painting business. And so he's saying, I go to Home Advisor and people don't realize that for every lead there, whether I use it or not, I have to pay a certain fee. But so he's looking at things like that. So you can, and also there was another business owner, she's a veteran, and she has actually a franchise, home health care. And she looks at, again, a conversion of her calls to actual clients. So there's a call for inquiry, then a home visit, and then also the home visit to the actual, becoming a client. And so some of those things, the conversions that they have. So it really depends on the type of business that you have. But generally, I mean, certainly the ones in terms of financial are critical. Your sales outstanding, like I mentioned before, monitoring your accounts receivable. As I mentioned, that one individual monitors daily his receivables because he's B2B, a lot of business. And so he wants to make sure if he's going to grow, he's got to keep turning those. And so those are some of the things. You can do some in terms of processes too, looking at your, number of defects that you have. So again, it depends on, the type of business that you have, but certainly those financial ones are critical for a start there.
We always say revenue, expenses, cash, focus only on the most critical things.
Mm-hmm.
You got to eliminate time and effort on anything that is not critical to the plan. So if it's not going to get you to where you want to be, it's not part of that plan, then why are you focusing on that? It's got to include those essential things. We all have bigger dreams for our businesses. So as entrepreneurs, we're just visioning the next best thing, right? But during this time, we have to put, sometimes we have to put those dreams inside and focus on getting through all of this, right? And this means that the things we decide to do, and more importantly, not to do, will be, critical choices we have to make. It's a result. You got to resist that temptation to just simply execute that plan that you had prior to whatever is going on. Like right now, everybody's trying to figure out how to get through this crisis, right? And how do we measure for growth during this kind of a time period, right? Like, who's thinking of growing right now? Everybody's just thinking about surviving right now. Right. So it means that you have to eliminate one or more things. And the question you must ask is, do I need to pursue this to survive, right? So you might not hire anybody right now, or you might maybe just kind of suspend some of the marketing spending and programs that you don't really need right now. What is it that you need to keep you moving forward, not keeping you stalled? And during this time period, a lot of people are trying to figure that out. So, most of my clients prior to the pandemic were like, I don't have time, Julianne. I don't have time to work on my process. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, guess what? Now you have time. So let's work on that and get you prepared for success whenever, business starts coming back again, now you're going to be ready. You're going to be ready for success. So those are the kinds of things that we try to think, like, how do we track things to keep going? Our philosophy is track everything. Track from the moment you started with that person to the time that you followed up to them, to the time that they gave you cash, to the time that, you know, every little thing. Track everything. Just track it all. That way you'll have some kind of data to know where you need to go. Which lane do I need to go down next? And I'll get off my soapbox.
That is such a good point. And I wanted to mention this when I heard Diane talking. It's not enough to track key performance indicators. They have to be actionable.
Yeah.
You have to be able to look at your KPIs and decide, where does that fit in with your goals? And did you reach them? And if you did reach them, why? What happened that you got a 3% revenue growth over the last 2 quarters? What happened that you didn't? The things that caused those changes in your KPIs are where you need to look to, so that you can either replicate the successes or identify why they were, or also not replicate the failures or the declines, and identify what needs to be bolstered so that your KPIs continue to go in the direction that your goals are stating them to be. You know, it's not enough just to measure. They have to be, you have to have actionable review of those KPI statistics so that you can get better. Or,
well, it's always about action, right? It's about, you know, okay, so we did this. Now what do we do about it? Do we do anything? Do we tweak it? Do we leave it alone? Or do we eliminate it? If it's not working, why do we keep doing this? You know, but if you're not measuring, you don't have any data to make decisions. And as an entrepreneur or as a CEO, you need to make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of data, is you do that analysis afterwards. And like I say, some indicators are more relevant for different types of businesses. I mean, we were just talking about employees, and you can even do data or metrics on employee turnover rate, like how often are we turning employees? And maybe that goes back to, you know, what is your hiring process, and how, you know, are you really spending time there to get the right employee there, you know, and a cultural fit and all the other things that we mentioned there. So I think you always have to look at, you know, what's critical for my company, how do we measure it? And then once we have the tool, or we gather this data, then how can we utilize this to see where, like you said, I think it was Julianne saying, you know, where are we failing and where are we doing well, and, you know, make changes, make adaptations. So that's the purpose of the data, not just collection for collection's sake, but analysis of that data for improvement.
Yeah, you can't take action if you don't have data to take action.
That's right.
And I think you have to be focused with it too. I mean, you're saying collect a lot of data, and I agree, but I think you have to think, what's the most important data that I can collect, because you're really busy. And so you can't, you know, it's like sometimes you get a lot of data and it just piles up and yeah, it's useless. But if you really, you know, focus on those areas that are most critical, the more critical functions for your business, aside from finance, looking at some of those, like I said, customer acquisition costs, you know, retention of employees and things like that. So what's most critical for your company?
Yeah, Miss Gales, I can't help but ask, but do you wake up in cold sweats in the middle of the night hearing Mr. Wonderful ask about your customer acquisition costs?
Right now, I don't sleep at all. I'm a brand new mom, so.
Oh, congratulations!
Well, congratulations! Yeah,
that's wonderful.
But yeah, in a way, I feel like the Shark Tank experience did really prepare me. It was like the ultimate in sharpen the axe when it comes to processes and data for your business, because you don't know what they're going to ask about your company, so you just have to be prepared to answer anything. And from that aspect, yeah, there was a lot that I had to study. This company was 6 months old at the time, and we're now 6 years old. And, you know, the first 5 years, I thought the top of the hill was get into Kroger. What do I have to do to get into Kroger? Winning, the exit strategy is get into Kroger. I don't even know what happens. I just thought it was this magical thing. When people ask you how many stores you're in, I want to be able to say I'm in all these Kroger stores, because it's the #1 grocery store in the nation, and that's winning. That I was like, that's it. If that's success, that's it. I get into 89 Kroger stores, and it was like, this is so, no offense, Kroger, it's so anticlimactic because So you do all this work thinking, you know, I want to take care of my family. My why is legacy and taking care of my family. I'm going to be able to buy that house for my mama. I'm going to buy, you know, I'm going to, you know, have the education paid for. Everybody's going to go to college kind of thing. And then you get the Kroger contract and they're like, oh, we've bought enough for the year. Oh, okay. Oh, you got to pay the manufacturing bill and the food broker and the labeler and the distributor. And so by the time everybody's like, you know, snatched up their percentage, you're sitting there like, I got this to live off of for the whole year. This is like a penny, you know? So everything that you thought about that goal and that exit strategy, you know, the reality hits that's not it. That's not gonna secure the legacy in the way that you thought for your family. So you have to figure out a different way. And that's about the time last summer that I was starting to learn that e-commerce is the way. So you start to pivot towards e-commerce and you're trying to learn and adapt. And then the COVID hits and people are like, if I'm going anywhere, I'm buying toilet paper and I am buying, you know, so the hierarchy of needs starts happening. And where's specialty sauce when you're going to grocery store on the hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm.
So you're all the time studying, you're all the time adapting and pivoting. And now it is, I've had to start over. So if people ask how I look at Mutt Sauce, it's almost like it's a startup. I've started completely over. I'm regathering data. I'm using a platform called Shopify.com. So if you're a retail food-based or product-based business, it gives you that on the back end. Because a lot of times our brains don't even think like that as an entrepreneur. We're moving 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm not thinking about no KPIs. I'm just thinking about selling sauce. Do you want some sauce? You know, like that's what I'm doing. I'm hustling and grinding, but I need something built in to help me think about those things, or have someone on my team, or have a resource. Somebody needs to do it if that's not your thing.
That's why we talk about AID: automate, delegate, eliminate.
There you go. I'm like, my brain's not there.
That's right.
But I think you hit on something else too. Like, you know, sometimes entrepreneurs think that just growing sales. And I think along with that, you have to look at how can I increase my margin, my profit margin, to be more profitable. I forgot, you said 89 stores or
89.
89 stores. But, you know, maybe if the margins were higher, maybe at 60 stores, you know, because sometimes it's just running faster and harder. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, if the net profit margin is very small, then you're just working harder and faster for just a little bit of money, like you mentioned, pennies. And so that's when you go back and you look at, okay, what are my costs of goods sold, you know, operational types of things, and can, you know,
front end
production, you know, my production costs and labeling, all those, where can I start narrowing down some of those costs, so that in the end, because it's your operational costs, going to be the higher. And then if you can, you know, minimize some of those, and it goes directly to your bottom line. So that's what I think where you're at right now, is saying, I need to really look at that. So it was just growing, but, you know, if you do $1 million in sales, but if you have 0.5%, you know, in margins, then it's like, okay, I don't know, do 2 million and I'm still be making, you know, 50,000, and I'm working around the clock. So I think the growth has to be, you know, sort of that calculated growth. And I think that was mentioned earlier, that it has to be strategic. And that's why you're looking at your KPIs. One of the ones that I mentioned was the financial KPIs. You're looking at those margins. What are my costs of goods sold? What percentage is that to my sales? You know, what is my profit margin sales, my gross margin? So you're always monitoring that, so that you actually end up, I think, at first people are just like growing, but then you start looking at internally at efficiencies, like how can I do production efficiencies? How can I do supply chain efficiencies? And so how can I be more profitable on the money that I'm making? You know, I can grow, but always, then you start looking at not just like another target market, another geographic region, but I'm also looking at, you know, efficiencies, in my, like I say, in those various areas, supply chain, production, those areas as well.
Well, you also want to make sure you're giving a good customer experience, right? So I'm always thinking about that too. If I'm not doing the grocery stores or festivals where I'm in your face and, you know, pitching to you personally and feeding you, how do I still give you a great experience and make a pivot that's good for me as a business owner? And, you know, that's what I'm examining right now too, is I'm pivoting online. So we have a Shopify store, but how do we make the experience great for you? Stuff like free shipping, things like the inserts of recipes for them, pivoting to start curating videos, because people are like, I want to know what I need. What do I cook with this? I'm cooking with my family. What do I make? So you have to make these adjustments, because ultimately you want to have that following, that demand. You still need the demand, but people are shopping differently, and they need to have you meet them in the middle. They really want to see you pivot with them.
And that's a really good point. And you know, Ms. Gales, you mentioned earlier that you had to look at a new marketplace in order to shift your business model, so to speak. And you mentioned e-commerce. So the last question I'd like to ask the panel is, how do you identify and take advantage of new market opportunities? Ms. Nichols, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, you've got to understand your target market to understand what new opportunities to go after. A lot of our entrepreneurs really struggle with this, is that they think they know what their target market is until we really like drill it down. And they get really broad and they're not really focused. And so how to identify and take advantage of those new market opportunities is just really understanding who your target market is. Because sometimes we'll just take anybody with a checkbook and a pulse, and we have to like kind of like say, okay, no, they're not really my target market, but hey, if they're willing to buy, right? And so how do you identify even the opportunity if you don't even know what that target market really is? So for us, it's just, you're going to get opportunities all the time, but they may not necessarily be opportunities. They may just be diversions. So really understanding and identifying who your market is and who you want to work with, and who really understands what you have to offer and wants to buy it and understands the value of what you have to offer is really key. It's kind of a broad, to me, it's kind of a broad question, and like, well, how do you know what a market opportunity is, you know? But sometimes it can come as not a really great opportunity, so.
Yeah, thank you.
I think too, and I absolutely agree with knowing your target market. And I can't tell you how many clients, I'm also a business analyst with the Small Business Development Center. And so I work with a lot of clients, and I see, you know, and they say, well, everybody. Well, technically, yes, anybody could buy it, but who's more likely to, right? And where are you going to, you know, focus your marketing efforts? So I totally agree with you, because that really becomes how you make decisions. But I think sometimes even trying to find new opportunities, I often start looking at industry research, like look at your industry data and see what are some trends there, what's happening in your industry. So I was looking at the, you know, the gyms, the fitness centers and all for a client, and we were looking at that, and we saw that the fastest growing segment is really with the baby boomers who want to maintain their health. They have the time and some of the resources to pay for that. They also, some of them can get supplements from their insurance companies, but that was a fast growing segment. So sometimes just looking at what's happening, you know, in your specific industry and some of the trends can spark some ideas for you as well. So not to be overlooked.
I think too, we talked about this in other aspects of this conversation, but whenever you're looking at new opportunities, and as Julianne pointed out, trying to determine whether or not it's an opportunity or a diversion or a distraction, if you have a good team in your business that is supporting what you're doing with that business, and they each have their own bailiwick of duties, doing that, modeling out that that product or service that you're going to expand to becomes an easier task, because you have the person responsible for your marketing look to see what is the marketing channel for that product or service that I might be expanding, or that new market opportunity. Someone in your staff that is well versed on the supply and distribution, they can track down the information you need to make the decisions about whether or not this is a good return on investment of both your time and your money in expanding into a new marketplace, or with new products or services. So I always advocate going back to the basics with even an individual product or service, because you will understand holistically everything you need to know about that opportunity if you do that. And then you can better evaluate whether or not it is worth the risk or worth the investment of time to go for that.
Mm-hmm. All right, terrific. We're going to wrap up here. So I want to thank all of you for your time and your insight and sharing it with our audience, because I know everybody who's watching is going to really benefit from your experiences and what you've shared with us today. So are there any final comments or thoughts that any of you want to share?
I'm just really grateful to be on this panel. Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to be on the panel with these amazing ladies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlinda. All right, well, enjoy. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm curious what episode of Shark Tank and season you were on, because I use Shark Tanks as a teaching tool in my classes. So I'd be interested to get that information from you.
Well, the amazing thing was I was season 6, but my episode didn't air. They actually taped 150. They taped 150 episodes over the number that they need.
Oh, okay.
So, I got that notification that I wasn't airing. I was like, man, that was
that would have been disappointing.
Yeah, a great experience anyway.
You know, that's part of what I tell people, like, even when you have an opportunity like that early on, deny doesn't mean that it's not gonna manifest itself somewhere else in your journey. You have to keep going, right? So I wanted to have Damon John, I wanted to pitch to him specifically. They say pick a shark. So I did, and it turns out that he wasn't there the day that I pitched. So I was already like walking in, like my heart was sunk. And fast forward to 4 years, I found out that I won the Bob Evans Farms Heroes of CEOs Award. And they said, we're giving you free mentorship from Shark Tank. And I was like, who's that? And they're like, Damon John.
There you go.
I tell people,
great surprise.
Keep going. Keep going, because you don't know what's on this path. You don't know where this journey is going. And he ended up mentoring me, and his latest book, Power Shift, just came out, and I'm on page 55. So, you know, you gotta to hear someone say that I inspired them. I'm like, are you kidding? You're Damon John. I don't, you know, I'm humbled by the whole journey, because you just never know. Like, you're this panel of amazing women. Like, you're part of this story that I am adding to this legacy story to my kids and my family. Like, this is what happens when you don't give up.
Manifest
That's a very good point. My mother always taught me that you never know who you're talking to. And so you should always hold yourself with character and integrity, no matter what the situation is. And since I started this nonprofit, and since I've been more heavily, even in all of the entrepreneurial efforts that I've been involved with personally, I've had a number of instances where it always comes back in a positive way when you throw out that positivity. So I'm so glad you got to experience that, Charlotte. I think everybody does if they're open and watching for it, because you just never know who's hearing what you're talking about, who might buy your product or service, and what influence they might have for somebody else. So if you just carry yourself with integrity and character, and you build what is in your passion to build, they will come. Even if it's not who you think it is, somebody's knocking on that door.